Welcome back, y'all, to Teality Rewind, the show where we press rewind on the reality shows that shaped the generation. I'm your girl, Betty, and today we're talking about one of the most underrated reality shows ever created, R&B Divas. Now, when people talk about reality television from the 2010s, they usually mention Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives, The Real Housewives, etc. But hardly anybody talks about the show that actually celebrated black women in music before the drama completely took over. Today we're taking a trip back to Atlanta, then we're headed to Los Angeles, and finally we're going to talk about New York. We're going to answer questions like, what are these women doing today? Who got the worst edit? Who was the fan favorite? Who was really the villain? Did reality TV help their careers or hurt them? And why did this franchise disappear when it seemed like it still had so much potential? So grab your tea, because it's time to rewind. Before we get into the cast, we have to understand why this show existed. Back in 2012, Whitney Houston had just passed away. The music industry, especially black R&B, was grieving. Many legendary singers were no longer receiving the attention they once had. Some had been dropped by labels, others were independent. Some simply wanted another chance for fans to see who they really were outside of the stage. That's where singer Nicci Gilbert of Brownstone had an idea. Instead of creating another reality show built around fighting, she wanted to create something different. A show about women who had survived the music business, women balancing careers, marriages, children, money, health, and trying to find a place in the industry that moved on. The original purpose wasn't to embarrass anybody. It wasn't about flipping tables. It wasn't about who could throw the hardest punch. The idea was sisterhood, healing, music, legacy, and honestly, that's what made R&B Divas feel different from almost every other reality show airing at the time. You weren't just watching celebrities, you were watching women who had actually lived through the highs and lows of fame. Some were Grammy nominees, some had platinum records, some had written songs we still sing today. Others were trying to rebuild careers after years away from the spotlight. And because they were older, the conversations felt more mature. They talked about depression, marriage, divorce, parenting, financial struggles, faith, getting older in the industry obsessed with youth. These are conversations we don't hear enough of today. Let's meet the women who made Atlanta the blueprint. Each one came into this show with a different story. Some were at the peak of their careers, some were trying to rebuild, and some were fighting to remind the world that they never left. And while they all shared a love for music, they definitely didn't always share the same opinions. Let's start with the woman many viewers considered the leader, Faith Evans. Faith Evans wasn't just another cast member. She was already R&B royalty before cameras ever started rolling. She became the first female artist signed to Bad Boy Records and helped define the sound of 90s R&B. Some of her biggest songs include You Used to Love Me, Soon as I Get Home, Love Like This, and I Love You. She also collaborated with artists like Puff Daddy, Carl Thomas, and her late husband, the Notorious B.I.G. By the time R&B Divas premiered in 2012, Faith had already spent nearly 2 decades in the music industry and had earned a Grammy Award, platinum albums, and a reputation as one of R&B's strongest vocalists. On the show, Faith naturally stepped into the role of mediator. She often tried to keep the peace, encourage collaboration, and focus on honoring Whitney Houston through the group's tribute performances. But being a peacemaker wasn't easy. As tensions grew between the women, Faith often found herself caught in the middle. Her disagreements with Nicci Gilbert over creative direction and leadership became one of the show's recurring conflicts. What stood out to me about Faith was her professionalism. She wasn't perfect, but she usually tried to keep the focus on the music. Looking back, I think fans appreciated her calm approach more than what they showed originally on the show. Today, Faye continues to perform, record music, and remains one of the most respected voices in R&B. Now let's talk about the cast member who probably had us laughing 1 minute and saying, "Girl, what are you doing?" the next. Keke Wyatt. If there was one person who wore her heart on the sleeve, it was Keke Wyatt. Known for powerhouse vocals and incredible range, Keke entered the music scene with hits like Nothing in This World with Avant and My First Love. Her debut work became some of the most memorable R&B collaborations of the early 2000s. By the time she joined R&B Divas, she'd been in the industry for more than a decade. But fans were finally getting to know the woman behind the voice. Keke was emotional, funny, loud, unfiltered, and sometimes unpredictable. She openly shared struggles in her marriage, pregnancy, motherhood, and mental health. Unlike many reality stars who try to appear perfect, Keke let viewers see the good, the bad, and the messy. One of her biggest storylines involved her ongoing tension with Monifah Carter. The two repeatedly clashed over communication and respect, leading to some of the most memorable confrontations on the series. Back then, many viewers labeled Keke as too emotional or dramatic. But years later, many fans have softened their view. Looking back, people recognize that Keke was dealing with real-life challenges while filming, and many appreciate how authentic she was. I think Keke was one of the most genuine people on the show. She wasn't trying to create drama for the cameras. She reacted emotionally because that's who she is. Love her or not, what you saw was usually the real Keke. Now let's talk about someone who often got misunderstood, Syleena Johnson. Syleena Johnson already had an impressive resume before joining the show. She was known for songs like Guess What, Hit on Me, and for her collaboration with Kanye West on All Falls Down. She also came from music royalty as the daughter of legendary soul singer Sly Johnson. By the time R&B Divas aired, Syleena had been in the industry for over 15 years. Throughout the series, viewers watched her struggle with rebuilding her career, balancing motherhood, and navigating a complicated relationship with her late father. She also had one of the biggest ongoing feuds on the show, with Nicci Gilbert. The two consistently disagreed over communication, respect, and business decisions. Their arguments became one of the defining storylines of the series. Many viewers thought Syleena came across as guarded or difficult, but today people often see her differently. Looking back, it's clear she was carrying a lot of emotional and professional emotions, and some fans believe she didn't always receive a fair edit. I think Syleena wanted people to understand her more than she wanted sympathy. Sometimes her delivery rubbed people the wrong way, but her struggles felt real. And then there was Monifah, a woman whose story wasn't just about music, it was about her living in her truth. Monifah Carter entered the music industry in the 1990s with hits like Touch It, I Miss You, Come Back Home. By the time she joined R&B Divas, she had been in the business for nearly 20 years. Monifah's story focused heavily on family, self-acceptance, and love. One of the show's most groundbreaking moments was her relationship with Therese, culminating in one of reality TV's earliest same-sex weddings centered on a black couple. That storyline resonated with many viewers because it was handled with sincerity rather than sensationality. Of course, Monifah also had her share of drama, particularly with Keke Wyatt. Their arguments over respect and communication became some of the series' most memorable moments. Some viewers admired Monifah's honesty and maturity, while others felt she could be stubborn in disagreements. Many fans now recognize Monifah as one of the show's most authentic voices, someone who stayed true to herself even though it wasn't the easiest path. Monifah brought balance to the cast. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, but when she spoke, people listened. And finally, we have to talk about the woman who made the entire franchise possible. Without her, there is no R&B Divas, Nicci Gilbert. Nicci Gilbert was already known as the powerhouse voice behind Brownstone, the group responsible for the classic hit, If You Love Me. She spent decades in the music industry before becoming something even more important, the creator of R&B Divas. Her vision was to give seasoned R&B singers a platform to tell their stories and remind audiences of the impact of music. Ironically, the woman who created the show also became one of its most polarizing figures. Nicci often found herself at odds with other cast members, especially Syleena Johnson and later Faith Evans. Some of the women felt Nicci was too controlling, while Nicci believed she deserved respect for creating the opportunity in the first place. Many viewers saw her as bossy or overly involved. Looking back, some fans have reconsidered her role. While she wasn't everyone's favorite, it's hard to ignore that R&B Divas existed because she believed these women still had stories worth telling. I think Nicci's biggest challenge was wearing too many hats. She was trying to be the creator, producer, businesswoman, and cast member all at once. Those roles can easily conflict, and I think that tension showed on screen. And we also cannot forget about the late and great Angie Stone. Angie also was a part of the cast, and while she was on there, people seen her as an OG. She hadn't been in the field for so long in the music industry. She has one of the most beautiful voices. She also was on the show, and I also would say that her time on the show wasn't really good because she came off very mean sometimes and very controlling on the show, especially in the scene with her daughter, who was also doing music. But outside of that, Angie Stone really was that girl. And she gets my respect. And rest in peace to you, ma'am. So, after meeting the Atlanta cast, it's easy to understand why this show connected with so many people. These weren't women chasing fame, they had already experienced it. Now they were trying to navigate the next chapter of their lives. But as we've seen with so many reality shows, success doesn't always keep people together. By season 3, R&B Divas Atlanta wasn't the same show anymore. The music was still there, but the sisterhood, that was beginning to fall apart. What started as a show about rebuilding careers slowly became another reality show centered on disagreements, hurt feelings, and fractured friendships. The irony is, the women came together because they all understood what it was like to survive the music industry. But reality television introduced a whole new set of challenges. So before we head to Los Angeles, let's talk about what ultimately led to Atlanta's downfall. When the series first premiered, it became one of TV One's highest rated original shows. Viewers appreciated something different. These women weren't trying to become famous. They were women trying to remind the world why they were famous in the first place. But after 3 seasons, things started changing. Faith Evans left. Nicci Gilbert, the creator of the franchise, also exited after ongoing disagreements. Without those 2 women, the show lost 2 of its biggest creative forces. The original mission of the celebrating music gradually became overshadowed by cast conflicts and shifting relationships. Like many reality shows, once key personalities leave, the chemistry changes, and that's exactly what happened. By 2014, TV One canceled R&B Divas Atlanta after 3 seasons. This is where I think the franchise made the biggest mistake. Instead of leaning even harder into the music, the show started chasing the same formula we are already seeing everywhere else. Fans came for the songs, the behind-the-scenes stories, the recording sessions, the concerts. When the focus drifted away from that, the show lost part of what made it unique. Now, before we leave Atlanta, I want to know what y'all think. Who carried this franchise? Was it Faith with her leadership, Keke Wyatt with her personality, Nicci Gilbert with her vision, or was it someone else? Drop your answers in the comments because I already know this one is going to start a debate. Now, let's head across the country. Because if Atlanta gave us sisterhood, Los Angeles gave us star power. When TV One announced R&B Divas LA, expectations were sky high. This cast wasn't just talented. The women represented some of the biggest names in R&B history. The question wasn't whether they could sing. The question was, could they coexist? Let's meet the women. When people think about powerhouse vocals, Kelly Price's name always comes up. Known for songs like Friend of Mine, As We Lay, and It's Gonna Rain. Kelly had already built a legendary career writing and singing with artists like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, and the Notorious B.I.G. By the time R&B Divas LA premiered, she'd been in the industry for nearly 3 decades. On the show, Kelly naturally stepped into a leadership role. She often tried to organize performances and keep everyone focused, but not everyone agreed with her approach. That created friction almost immediately. Many viewers admired Kelly's professionalism, but felt she sometimes came across as controlling. Today, many fans appreciate that she was genuinely trying to make the project successful, even if her delivery wasn't always well received. Kelly reminded me a lot of Faith Evans. When you're one of the most accomplished people in the room, people often expect you to lead. But leadership doesn't always make you popular. Next up, one of the smoothest voices in R&B, Chanté Moore, known for classics like Love Taking Over, It's Alright, and Chanté's Got a Man. Chanté had already enjoyed decades of success before joining the show. Unlike some of the louder personalities, she often brought humor and elegance to the cast. But don't let that fool you. When Chanté had something to say, she said it. One of her recurring storylines involved balancing motherhood, relationships, and rebuilding her career while adjusting to life after divorce. Fans viewed Chanté as classy, but underestimated how unspoken she could be. She often remembered as one of the most balanced personalities on the series, and Chanté knew how to stand up for herself without making every disagreement into a spectacle, and I respect that. If Atlanta had Keke Wyatt, Los Angeles had Lil Mo. You never had to wonder what Lil Mo was thinking, because she was going to tell you. She is known for Superwoman Part 2, Forever, and Hot Boys with Missy Elliott. Lil Mo brought comedy, energy, and honesty to every episode. She joked, she laughed, she cried, she argued. She made sure there was never a dull moment. Her biggest conflicts often stem from her blunt personality. She wasn't trying to offend people, she just didn't believe in sugarcoating anything. Some viewers loved her, others thought she was too loud. Looking back, many fans see Lil Mo as one of the funniest and most entertaining cast members in the franchise. Every reality show needs someone who says what everyone else is thinking. And for R&B Divas LA, that person was Lil Mo. Then we had Dawn Robinson, a founding member of En Vogue. If you remember R&B history, you know En Vogue changed everything. With songs like Hold On, My Lovin', You're Never Gonna Get It, and Free Your Mind, helped define an entire generation. But Dawn's storyline wasn't about reliving the glory days. It was about rebuilding. She spoke openly about financial struggles, career setbacks, and trying to regain confidence after leaving one of the biggest girl groups in history. Some viewers felt Dawn was misunderstood and emotionally distant. Many fans now believe she was simply trying to find herself after years of industry disappointments. Dawn's story reminded us that fame doesn't always guarantee long-term stability. Every legendary artist faced difficult chapters. Michel'le joins the cast with one of the most recognizable voices in R&B history. She is known for Something in My Heart. She also came with a story many viewers already knew because of her highly publicized relationship with Dr. Dre and Suge Knight. On the show, Michel'le opened up about motherhood, surviving abusive relationships, and trying to move forward. Those conversations became some of the most emotional moments in the series. Fans admire her vulnerability, and today people view Michel'le's willingness to speak open about domestic violence as one of the most important contributions to the franchise. Reality TV often rewards drama, but Michel'le reminded us that sharing your truth can be powerful. And then finally, Claudette Ortiz, best known as the member of City High, with songs like What Would You Do and Caramel, made City High one of the early 2000 most memorable groups. On the show, Claudette focused on rebuilding her career after divorce while balancing motherhood. She wasn't always in the middle of the drama, but she added another perspective about life after fame. Claudette represented something we don't talk about enough. What happens after that hit record stops? How do artists rebuild? That was one of the strengths of R&B Divas. Now, we've met the women of Los Angeles, but we're not done. So now, we've met the incredible women of Atlanta, we've met the powerhouse cast of Los Angeles, but let's be honest, as much as we love the music, people tuned in every week because they wanted to know, who's arguing now? Unlike today's reality TV, R&B Divas rarely feature physical fights. Instead, the battles were emotional, professional, personal, and sometimes those hurt even more than throwing punches. Now let's start with it all. Keke Wyatt versus Monifah Carter. This wasn't one explosive argument, it was tension that built over time. Keke often felt misunderstood. Monifah expected accountability. The two had very different communication styles, and every conversation seemed to make things worse. Watching it back, I don't think either woman was necessarily wrong. They just spoke completely different emotional languages. Nicci Gilbert versus Syleena Johnson. This feud became one of the most defining storylines of R&B Divas Atlanta. Business disagreements, creative differences, hurt feelings, and questions about respect all fueled their conflict. Some viewers sided with Syleena, others believed Nicci deserved more appreciation since she created the show. In my opinion, this argument felt bigger than reality TV. It felt like two women fighting over legacy. Faith Evans versus Nicci Gilbert. As the seasons progressed, Faith and Nicci also found themselves on opposite sides. Leadership, creative decisions, communication, everything became a point of tension. By then, the original vision of sisterhood was beginning to crack. While LA didn't have as many explosive confrontations, there were still memorable disagreements. Kelly Price versus Lil Mo. Kelly believed in structure, Lil Mo believed in saying whatever was on her mind. Needless to say, those personalities didn't always mix. Kelly Price versus Chanté Moore. The two strong personalities occasionally clashed over leadership and decision making. Neither woman backed down easily. And Dawn Robinson. Dawn's biggest conflict wasn't necessarily with another cast member, it was with herself. She spent much of the series trying to regain confidence after years away from mainstream success. That internal struggle became one of the most relatable storylines on the show. Now here's the question. Which city had the strongest cast? Personally, I think Atlanta had better chemistry. The women genuinely felt connected even when they disagreed. Los Angeles had bigger names, more platinum albums, more star power, but sometimes it felt like everyone was working on their own individual comeback instead of building something together. What do y'all think? Team Atlanta or Team LA? Let me know in the comments. Here's something I've been thinking about. Did R&B Divas fail or did television change? Because around the same time, shows like Love and Hip Hop, Basketball Wives, and later Growing Up Hip Hop were dominating reality television. The audience was changing, networks started rewarding louder arguments, bigger drama, more shocking moments. Meanwhile, R&B Diva was still trying to balance music with real life. Maybe it was ahead of its time, or maybe it came out at the wrong time. Now let's talk about something many people completely forgot about. The franchise expanded again, but this time to New York. The idea makes sense. New York has produced some of the biggest female voices in R&B history. Fans hope this new chapter will capture the same magic that Atlanta did. But here's the problem. By that point, that excitement surrounding the franchise had cooled. Many of the biggest names fans wanted weren't part of the cast. The chemistry didn't connect with audience the way Atlanta had. The show struggled to generate the same buzz and it never became the cultural moment the original series was. But I also heard that Nicci is coming back, y'all. She coming back with R&B Divas New York. She's already casting as we're talking, and by the end of maybe this year, going into next year, we will have a show. So R&B Divas is coming back, and I cannot wait. Sometimes it's not enough to have talented singers. You need chemistry. That's something Atlanta had naturally. You can't manufacture genuine friendships, and I think viewers can tell that now. So, where are these people at now? Where are our divas? Let's check in with some of the women today. Faith Evans is still touring. She's still recording and still considered one of the greatest voices in modern R&B. Keke Wyatt, she continues performing, has expanded her career through television appearances and social media while remaining one of the industry's most gifted vocalists. Syleena Johnson, she's still recording, still touring, and has also become a radio personality and podcast host while continuing to champion independent R&B. Monifah Carter lives a much quieter public life, focusing on family and selective projects. Nicci Gilbert continues producing, writing, and advocating for creators' rights while remaining active behind the scenes in entertainment. Kelly Price, she's still touring and recording. She also became the center of national headlines in 2021 after concerns about her health following COVID-19, but later reassured fans she was recovering. Chanté Moore continues performing worldwide and remains one of the most respected live vocalists in R&B. Lil Mo, she balances music, media appearances, radio, and television while staying true to her outspoken personality. Michel'le continues performing and sharing her story through interviews and documentaries, helping raise awareness about domestic abuse. Dawn Robinson still performs with En Vogue at times and remains active in music, while also reconnecting with fans through social media. And Claudette Ortiz, she continues performing and making appearances while focusing on family and independent projects. So after watching R&B Divas all these years later, I have one question. Did these women get the flowers they truly deserve? Because if we being honest, many of these artists helped build the soundtrack to our lives. They sold millions of records, won awards, influenced generations of singers. Yet today, their names don't always come up when we talk about the greatest women in R&B. Maybe R&B Divas wasn't just a reality show. Maybe it was just a reminder that legends deserve to be celebrated while they're still here. And that's why R&B Divas still matters. It wasn't perfect. There was drama. There were disagreements. There were hurt feelings. But underneath all of that, there was something we don't see enough in reality television anymore. Legacy. These women weren't fighting to become stars. They already were stars. They were simply trying to remind the world of the music, the sacrifices, and the stories that made them icons. If this episode brought back memories or introduced you to R&B Divas for the first time, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the Thought Network, and share your favorite cast member in the comments. And I want to leave you with this one final question. If TV One announced an R&B Divas reboot tomorrow, who would be on your dream cast? I'm Betty, this is Teality Rewind. Until next time, keep the tape rolling because the past always has another story to tell.